and the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And ladies and gentlemen, due to some scheduling issues with the witness who was in the middle of her testimony yesterday, the state is going to call another witness. Obviously, you are required to keep an open mind until you hear all of the testimony from all of the witnesses. So the order in which the testimony comes in doesn't really matter. So, state, call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Jan Finnegan. Please stand.
What was the last name, counsel?
Finnegan.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat. State and spell both your first and last names for our record.
My first name is Jan, J-A-N, and my last name is Finnegan, F-I-N-N-E-G-A-N.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hammond.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Finnegan. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
Okay. Do you know someone by the name of Janet Solander?
Yes.
Do you see Ms. Solander here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you please point out where she is and maybe describe an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's over where she was good, like she was a pink heart, article of clothing on.
Can you let the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant, Ms. Solander? Now, I want to turn your attention to January of 2013. Did you come into contact with the Solander family around that time?
I did.
And if you could explain to the jury, how did you kind of meet up with them or start to get to know them?
I answered an ad on Craigslist. They had placed an ad for a temporary nanny, and I was working in Kingman at a homeless shelter there, a place for women. Anyway, I replied to the ad, and then I went to meet him on a Friday afternoon. And I got some correspondence. In the meantime, I spoke to her husband, and I went up to Vegas. I live in Laughlin. Went up to Vegas to meet with her husband on a Friday afternoon.
Okay. What was her husband's name?
White.
When you went there and you met them, where did you meet them at?
I met them in the den of their home.
Okay, and that was here in Clark County?
Yes, in Las Vegas.
When you had that meeting with the Solanders at first, what did they want you to do? What was what did the job entail, at least in the first meeting?
Basically, stay with the children Monday through Friday and homeschool them, fix their meals.
Okay.
And they also told me there was 2 other foster children in the home.
Did they explain to you, and when you say the children, who are you talking about? The homeschooling the children, who are those children?
Yeah, I'm talking about 3 of the Solanders children.
Okay, do you remember what their names were?
Their names were Amaya, Ava, and Anesthesia.
Okay.
I'm not pronouncing it right, but it's got trouble with her name.
And you also mentioned that you might have to take a foster child to school.
I used to have to take her to the bus stop.
Do you remember the name of those girls?
Autumn and Ivy.
Okay. When you met with them and they said that you needed to kind of be there for those 5 days, Monday through Friday, where did they tell you Janet was going to be?
She told me, because I sat with them in the den, that she was going to go to Ohio to be with her daughter. I guess her daughter was going to have a baby.
And what about Dwight? What was Dwight's kind of schedule like?
His schedule, he told me he would leave home on a Monday and come back Friday. He told me he worked for Target and he was out of town during the week.
And so you needed to basically live at the house?
Live at the house Monday through Friday.
5 days of the 7 days?
5 days, yeah.
I want to ask you about the house for a second. How many levels was the house?
There was 2 levels.
How many bedrooms were in the house?
There was 4.
Okay. Do you remember how many bathrooms there were?
From my perspective, I think there was 2, but that's not counting the master bedroom, of course.
So maybe you're assuming there's a bathroom
Yeah,
in the master bedroom.
Right.
Where was one of the bathrooms? Of the two bathrooms that you kind of were most familiar with, where were they located?
One was downstairs and the other was upstairs. Yeah.
Do you remember any cameras around the house? Tell us about that.
The main camera was downstairs. Hard to describe it. It was almost between the pantry and the lower bathroom, and it would face towards the kitchen.
So this camera had a field of view from what you could observe of the pantry and the bathroom downstairs.
Objection calls for speculation as to what the camera
It faced the kitchen, so
Let
Let me rephrase, well, not rephrase, but let me restate the question. From your perspective, from what you could see, was the camera was angled in the direction of the pantry and the bathroom on the first floor?
it was facing mostly towards the kitchen, so they could see everything that was going on in the kitchen area that I
Okay.
was doing in the kitchen.
Where's the bathroom in relation to the kitchen? And the first floor?
On the first floor is really down at the bottom of the stairs to the left as you went downstairs, and opposite the bathroom over here, the kitchen would be over here.
Okay. So from what you could observe, was the pantry in that field of view of the camera?
From what I could observe, I really didn't know it covered the pantry. I mean, because the pantry was on the opposite side of the camera right
But
here.
as far as you could see, the kitchen was within this field of view?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the upstairs area. You mentioned, where's that second bathroom? Is that upstairs?
Right as you go up the 2 flights of stairs, the bathroom is right there.
Is it on, if you were to come up to the stairs, is it on your left or your right?
It was on your left.
Okay. Were there any cameras up on the second level?
Right. Right as you went to the top of the stairs with the camera right there.
So the bathroom's right at the top of the stairs and there's a camera
The
there.
camera, well, once you got up the flight of the stairs, the camera's kind of right up here, like kind of on the ceiling, looking down.
Is it looking down towards the entrance of the
To the
bathroom?
bathroom, yes.
Have you ever seen something like that before?
Never in my life. Never.
When you met with Janet, what did she tell you she did for a living?
She didn't tell me.
Okay. What did anyone tell you what she did for a living?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Well, it's
Sustained.
okay. Let's talk about Maya, Anastasia, and Ava for a second. I know there's other kids in the house, but let's first focus on those kids, okay? And do you mind if we kind of call them the Solander girls? All right. Let's talk about the Solander girls. When you first met them, how did they appear to you physically?
Physically not good.
In what way?
Well, the first day I was there, by afternoon, watching the girls, the 11-year-old appeared very malnourished, very thin, and to me,
Objection calls for medical opinion.
So, please continue.
her body, just the arms and her skin, everything, she had no, it was just all bone, and I just felt they were malnourished, and
From what you can see.
from what I observed.
Did that apply to all three girls or just one girl?
Well, to me, it applied initially to her, to the older one. The middle girl was a little heavier, so, but
Okay. When you started working there, did you see anything or observe anything where Dwight or Janet were concerned about the girl's weight?
I did. The very first morning I was there, right before he left, Mr. Solander was on his phone to his wife. She was apparently in Ohio, and he brought the scales down and put Ava on the scales, and said apparently she was so many pounds overweight, and I don't remember exactly how many pounds. And it just seemed very unusual to me.
And when you say she was on the phone, was it like a regular phone call? Was it like a Skype?
He had a smartphone, and he's taking a picture of Ava as he's talking to his wife.
Okay. And could you hear Janet on the phone?
I really couldn't hear it.
What was Dwight's demeanor when the child was weighing herself, finding out how much pounds she gained?
Well, he didn't seem happy. He wasn't angry, but she was overweight and determined. Apparently she got some sweets the previous week, and they said she was overweight.
Let me ask you this. From what you could see, did she appear overweight?
No way. No, definitely not.
about their kind of their color. You know, sometimes people have color in their cheeks. You've heard that kind of saying. Tell me about these kids. How did they kind of seem?
Snow color. Especially the middle one really.
Which one's that?
Amaya.
Okay.
She was very pale all the time. Even though I'm not a doctor, to me, she seemed like she was either diabetic or something.
That's sustained.
Let's just try to focus on things you can see. Okay. But she didn't look very good. She seemed very pale to you. I want to turn your attention about these girls and talk a little bit about how talkative they were when they were around Dwight or Janet.
Around Dwight or Janet, I really didn't see them around Janet very much because she left that, apparently left that evening or the next day.
All right, well, let's focus on the times that they were around Dwight. How talkative were they?
Not very talkative because I got there, sometimes I would get there on a Sunday night because I didn't want to tackle the traffic on a Monday morning. I didn't really see much communication between them, and when he left on a Monday morning, there was absolutely no physical contact of any kind.
Okay, and see any hugs?
No hugs, no
Kisses?
nothing.
Pats on the head? Anything?
No.
Did you ever see Dwight play with the kids? And when I say the kids, I'm talking about the Solander
Right.
girls.
Not at all.
All right. The limited time that you saw Janet, let's just talk about that beginning, that first day. I know you said you saw her. Did you see any hugs or kisses or things like that with
No,
those
not at
girls?
all.
When you started to work there, let's just talk about week one. How talkative were these girls?
Well, not very talkative, but I got the impression they were afraid to talk very much.
What were you seeing? What were you seeing about these girls that made you feel like that?
I got the
Calls for
feeling,
speculation.
About your observations.
What did you observe? You can answer.
I observed these children as being brainwashed. The children reminded me of people, children that were afraid to say how they really felt.
Can you tell us a little bit about body positioning, the tone of their voice, eye contact? What were you seeing with these
The
kids?
tone of voice, they were very afraid, and the older one would confide in me. The children and I got along fine. They had lovely smiles and all this, but the older one would confide in me.
Who was that?
and stuff like that.
Which girl was that?
They were Chinese.
Okay. Did Amber ever talk to you about how she felt about living there?
Oh,
What did she tell you?
it's hard to say because they wanted to come home with me. And I'm not allowed to say, but she said to me more than once, she said,
Objection, it's hearsay.
It's state line for clarity.
she begged me to take her home to Laughlin with me.
Remember anything about a teddy bear?
I didn't.
Tell us about that.
Maya had told me, I know it's hearsay, she had been in the hospital before Christmas. She had a seizure. And I asked her, I was making conversation, did your mom go see you in the hospital? And she said, yes. And I said, she said, she bought me a teddy bear. So I asked where the teddy bear was. And she said, it's locked in the bedroom with everything else, in her parents' bedroom. None of the kids had any.
Let me ask you this. Did you observe that? Did they have a lot of toys in the house?
No, the kids had no toys.
Let's talk about schooling for a little bit. Did these children, the Solander girls, go to public school or any sort of schooling outside home?
No.
Because they were homeschooled. Walk us through what your instructions were. When was school supposed to start for the girls?
The schools were supposed to start approximately about 9 o'clock after they'd eaten breakfast. And there was a schedule for each week, for each child. And that's-
So 9 o'clock for all three girls to start?
Yes.
Okay, what time were they supposed to stop?
Generally, they stopped maybe 1 or 2 o'clock when they got done. If the older one got done earlier, they were allowed to read a book, but they don't she only had one book. She didn't have much to read or anything else.
So, how many times did they get breaks for like recess to go outside and play during this?
Never.
Never. So you were not instructed not to let them out for any breaks. How many breaks did they actually get during a day?
They didn't get breaks probably till after 2:30, and then they walked with me to the bus to pick up the other children.
So the break was picking up Autumn.
Right, from the break was picking, and they would come back and play with the other children.
Okay. So from 9 to essentially 2, they're just sitting and working.
They're working, or
Okay. And these were the instructions given to you by the Solanders.
right.
Were there any instructions about whether or not, if they were having difficulty with some work or a problem, whether you could try to help them with that?
They would ask me for help, and I would give it, and mostly with the, Amaya would need help, and she'd be very frustrated with the work. And I would try to help her as best I could.
Did any of the children express any concerns about the fact you were helping them at times?
No, but they expressed they weren't allowed to help each other.
Okay.
Ava stressed she was told she should not be helping Amaya. One of the other had a problem.
What did she say might happen?
She didn't tell me what would happen. She just said I would get in trouble.
Did she explain how anyone would find out? Or how they would know?
The cameras are right
State of
there.
mind.
The cameras are watching
Hold on a second,
everything.
let her make a ruling. State of mind with the Claire. Was it overruled? I didn't hear the...
I said overruled.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did she explain to you why she thought they might find out, or how she could be in trouble or anything like that?
They were afraid to say very much because they kept pointing. The cameras watching
And that camera...
every move.
So which camera? The upstairs camera or the
No,
downstairs?
this is downstairs. They watch the kitchen.
Oh, I didn't ask you that. Where do these children do their homework?
In the kitchen. Or
Okay.
the dining room, the kitchen area. Yes.
Was that area that they worked within that general field of view of that camera?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the bathroom, okay? Were the Solander children allowed to just go use the bathroom if they needed to use the bathroom? Who gave you that instruction?
Ava.
Okay. And so Ava said they weren't allowed to go to the bathroom if they wanted to.
No. And they couldn't use the downstairs bathroom.
So you're not allowed to use the downstairs bathroom, and you couldn't go when you wanted to. So what's the routine? If someone had to go to the bathroom, what happened in the house?
The routine, approximately maybe about 10 o'clock, if one of them had to go, she said, I'm sorry, I got to go to the bathroom. I said, no problem. But we're not allowed to go by ourselves. So all four of us would go up 2 flights of stairs. And I know the first time I thought it was unusual, but go to the bathroom, and I would suggest, to the other girls, let's stand back and give her some privacy. They weren't allowed to shut the door when they went to the bathroom.
They weren't allowed to shut the door. So where would these other kids be standing?
They were standing by the banisters there, and they're laughing and joking with me because the camera was right watching me, and I didn't know if the camera had voice recording on it. The girls would be standing along the banisters here outside the master bedroom, and they're giggling and laughing at me, and
Objection,
they're
non-responsive
telling me to be
narrative at
quiet.
this point.
Basis.
Non-responsive.
That's responsive. Please continue. If you have more to add, if not, I can move on.
Well, I just found this highly unusual. They said they're only allowed to use a certain amount of paper in the bathroom, and they weren't allowed to shut the door. And I would ask them to stand back to give the other girls some privacy.
You mentioned something about toilet paper. What was that about?
They told me they weren't allowed to use 2 sheets of toilet paper.
Have you ever heard that before?
Never. Never.
There were other kids, though, living in that house, right? Autumn and Ivy. What were the bathroom rules for those kids?
There was no bathroom. They used the bathroom downstairs, and they went to the bathroom when they wanted.
Did they have to stand in a group on the upstairs bathroom like
No.
the Solander children?
No.
Okay. Did Janet or Dwight explain why the difference to you?
No, not at all.
Remember the first time you ever did laundry at the Solander house?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I decided to do a load of maybe socks and children's underwear just to be helpful, you know, a week. And Ava said, well, you probably get in trouble. And I said, why? And she said, well, my dad inspects our panties. And I was just astonished or bewildered. A man inspecting children's panties. So in disbelief, I just thought, maybe she's making this up. But I did a load of laundry. And when he came home, he asked me not to do any more laundry. He likes to see their underwear.
Okay.
Just,
Let me ask you this. Did you ever want to see Autumn and Ivy's underwear? Okay. You just wanted to see the Solander case. Did he explain to you why he needed to do that?
very little explanation. At the time, he said to fight infections, and said sometimes they soil their pants or probably urinating or something like that.
So I want to take you back to that first day you were in that house alone with those kids, the Solander girls. Do you remember that day, generally?
I do.
So you were with them from when to when? When did you get there for that first day?
The first day, I believe I got there on a Sunday night.
Okay. So you were there kind of that night, and then the next morning Dwight leaves, is that right?
Next morning, he leaves.
So Monday morning, you have him probably
Monday
in the
morning.
beginning of Monday morning.
When I first, yeah.
No Dwight in the house?
No, he was there because the first morning before he left, he was showing me how to make their evening meal and what they got for breakfast.
Okay, we'll get to that.
But then he was there.
What time does Dwight leave?
It's hard to say. Maybe 8 o'clock,
In the
9
morning?
o'clock, depending on where he was going that week, I suppose.
So when you got up in the morning on Monday morning, did Ava pee all over herself?
Objection, lady.
It's not leaving. It doesn't suggest the music. Did Ava
What did
pee?
you observe?
Did Ava pee on herself in the morning?
No,
How about on mine?
no,
How about Anastasia?
none of them.
How about Autumn?
No,
How about Ivy?
no,
Okay. Anybody poop on themselves?
no.
Okay, Dwight then leaves, right?
Yes,
Okay. And then you're with these kids for the entire day for Monday. Did any of the Solander girls have an accident in terms of peeing on themselves?
no,
How about pooping?
no,
Vomiting? When Autumn came home from school, did she have any issues with peeing or pooping on herself? How about Ivy?
no, none of them.
Let's talk Tuesday of the first week. Any peeing and pooping issues?
No.
Nanny children?
No,
Wednesday?
no,
Thursday?
no,
Friday?
never, no.
How about the second week?
I never had anything, we never had any problem in that area for the whole 3 weeks I was there.
So for the 3 weeks you were there, when they were in your exclusive care,
Yes.
Ivy never peed and pooped herself?
Me?
Autumn never peed and
No.
pooped herself? Anastasia never peed and pooped herself?
No.
Amaya never peed and pooped herself?
No.
And Ava didn't pee and poop herself? And these are the things that you saw, right, because you were there.
Yes.
This is not a rumor or anything. These are the things you observed with your eyes.
Right.
Let's talk again, that first day that you're there. Did any of the Solander girls have a severe tantrum in the house?
No.
Anything you observed, disturbing emotional behavior? See anything like that?
Nothing at all.
Nothing like that on Monday?
Nothing. They were very calm.
How about Tuesday?
No.
Wednesday?
No.
Thursday?
No.
Friday?
No.
How about week 2? How about week 3?
No.
But you were there the whole time, right?
I was there the whole time. They worked out with me. I would play with them, and never had any tantrums. No.
I mean, you were watching the girls, right?
Of course.
Just checking. Let's talk mealtime. First, let's just talk about the foster girls, Autumn and Ivy. What were the instructions for breakfast for them?
They had a bowl of cereal for breakfast.
What was the instructions for lunch for them?
had to make lunch for one of the children. She was going to school, so the instructions just made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and carrots, and that was it.
So, was that for Monday,
Yep.
PB&J? How about for Tuesday? What
Every
would you-
day it was the same thing.
Every
day
single
was
day?
the same lunch.
So for
Same.
3 weeks, that was the lunch that child got,
Every
PB&J
day.
and carrots.
Every day.
Let's talk dinner for Autumn and Ivy. What did they get for dinner?
The same thing, banquet dinner every night, and they
Those-
would cry. when they
What
came.
is a banquet dinner for people who don't know?
Unfortunately, it's a TV dinner.
Okay, how much does it cost, do you know?
I honestly don't know, maybe $1, maybe 79 cents in the store. I don't buy them, so I don't know.
Okay. How many days of the 3 weeks you were there did you serve that dinner to Autumn and Ivy?
Every day.
Okay. Where did Autumn and Ivy eat their dinner?
They ate their dinner at a small table and chairs over in a different section of the,
So they sat down at
they
their
sat
table
down
and
at
chairs.
the table and chairs.
Where would they eat their breakfast?
The same place, a small table and chairs.
And for the little one who would stay, maybe have lunch, where would she have her lunch?
Right there at the table and chairs.
Now I want to talk about the Solander girls. What did they have for breakfast?
They had oatmeal, which was mixed with quinoa.
Okay. And explain how that meal is prepared.
Well, I made oatmeal mixed with quinoa, I'm not saying it right, but anyway, mixed it up, heated it up, and I had to pour it in 3 plastic cups for the girls, and they have to stand in 3 different places in the kitchen.
Where were their chairs?
They didn't have any chairs.
So they would eat breakfast standing up,
Yes.
while the other girls sat at a table with chairs. Let me ask you this, were there other chairs available to sit in the house?
Yes.
Did Dwight or Janet explain to you why these 3 girls needed to stand for breakfast?
No.
Did they offer some sort of medical diagnosis that would require them to stand while eating their breakfast?
Objection, asking that concerned with it.
It's a different question.
Oh, no, no.
Let me repeat the question for you. Did Janet or Dwight explain to you that there was a doctor diagnosis or treatment that required them to stand while eating breakfast?
Absolutely not. No.
Well, let's talk about lunch. What did the girls have for lunch?
Nothing.
Did they get a snack for lunch?
No. Nothing.
So they got no lunch.
No lunch.
So they just worked through lunch? Did Janet or Dwight explain to you why they were not allowed to have lunch?
No.
Did Janet or Dwight explain to you that there may have been some sort of medical treatment that would require them not to have a lunch?
No.
Did they explain to you why they couldn't have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich like Autumn or Ivy?
No.
But you followed these instructions.
I just followed the instructions.
Let's talk about dinner for the Solander girls. Explain to this jury what their meals were like.
Dinner, I had to get a large can of refried beans or something similar, mostly a can of refried beans, a large can of vegetable, maybe a green vegetable or something, and if there was hamburger, there wasn't hamburger every day. And cook this and mix it all up in a blender. And after it's mixed up in a blender, put it in 3 cups, and that's all they ate for dinner. Every night. Every night.
So Monday, that's what they had to eat? First week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yes.
Thursday,
Yes.
Friday. All of week 2
Yes.
and all of week 3. Where would they sit when they had dinner?
They weren't allowed to sit.
So where would they be?
They each had a certain place in the kitchen, and they had to stand there and eat their meal. And
In
they
front
had
of
to
the
drink,
camera?
excuse
In
me.
front of the camera?
Well, the camera was facing on them, yes.
Did Janet or Dwight explained to you why they needed to have that meal every single day for essentially 3 weeks?
No.
Did they offer you any sort of variation?
No variation. The first morning when Dwight showed me how to use this, they had a commercial blender and all the stuff that went into the food. He just said they had to eat this because he said they had intestinal problems. That's what he said.
Did he explain any sort of medical diagnosis?
No, no.
Okay. Just that there was some sort of intestinal.
Yeah.
Okay. And that they couldn't have solid foods, essentially?
Right, that's basically right.
Okay. We'll get back to that in a second. But before we get to that, let's just talk about having something to drink in the house. How much milk did you give them?
None.
How much juice did you give them?
None.
You gave them water, though, right?
No, they weren't allowed.
How often would they get water, as far as you remember?
Hardly ever.
Okay. Could they have water with dinner? Could they have water during the middle of the day?
No.
Was there like a cutoff time or anything like that?
They just weren't allowed water. Sometimes I would give the older girl a glass with a little bit of water, and she said, I'm not allowed to have a glass, so she would just drink her little bit of water.
What was her kind of body, what was her body language like when you're offering her a little amount of water?
Well, like she was afraid.
Of water, drinking water. She's afraid of
She could get in trouble. Yes.
Okay. Did Dwight or Janet explain to you why these children could not have water?
No.
Did they explain to you that there was some sort of treatment plan from a doctor that required these children not to have water?
No.
Did any of the kids ever tell you what they would do because they may have been thirsty in the house?
Yes.
Tell us. And tell us which one, if you remember.
I remember the older one, Ava, at the time she was probably 11 and a half. She was a smart girl. But I was horrified. She told me that she would take liquid aspirin and go take liquid aspirin just so she would have some liquid in her mouth. Because they would get dehydrated.
Did kids get any fruit, anything like that in the house?
Absolutely nothing.
Do you ever remember whether it's on one of these? You mentioned Janet sometimes would be on like a phone or something like that. Would she ever be like on Skype or things like that too in the house?
Not in the house, only to her daughter and her daughter's
Okay. Do you ever remember Janet being concerned or upset about meal times or dinner or anything like that while you were there at the house? If you remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. How often were they allowed to go outside and play in the backyard?
They weren't. I took them outside to play ball and stuff like that on a warm day.
Okay.
January 1st.
But generally they were not allowed. And did that apply to both the Solander girls and the Autumn and Ivy start?
Right.
Were you working there around Valentine's Day in 2013? Remember anything about that day in particular?
I do.
Please, tell this jury.
With Valentine's Day, I thought maybe, well, these children missed out because they would go to public schools. They missed out on all the usual stuff. So after I got the other child from the bus stop, I parked my car near the gate. And we managed to get all the 5 children in my car, and I took them up to, I can't remember where, but anyway, the closest dollar store. And I let the children pick out whatever they wanted and wish them happy Valentine's Day. And I had hoped that one of the parents would call their children and wish them happy Valentine's Day, but none of that happened. And I wanted just to give the children a little joy for that day as much as I could, but that was
And Did any of the kids say anything to Janet or Dwight about that?
I believe the older one said something to Janet, yes.
And what was the reaction?
Janet called the next day, and I answered the phone, and she spoke to me, and initially she was very nice to me and all this, and in my mind I'm thinking there's something behind this, and she went on to tell me that her husband had flown to where he was in Ohio apparently no, she was in Ohio, but wherever he was, he had flown to have dinner with her on Valentine's night, and she shared that with me, that she had a lovely day, her and her husband got together. And inside of me I'm saying to this, what about these children? But so the next day she called, and so after can I speak to Ava, she says. So sure, so I gave the phone to Ava. So Ava shared this with Janet, her mother. And her mother got really upset with her that I'd taken her to the store. And she called just to tell the daughter just to take the garbage can out at night. And I was just horrified, one of those big poly carts that you take at night. I could have taken that out. It was dark at night at 7 o'clock. And she ended up crying. And I just put my arm around her and I just shook my head again. But there was no mention of anything about Valentine's Day to any one of the children.
Did they call on that day? Dwight or Janet called on that day? You mentioned that sometimes Janet's daughter would talk with Janet over Skype. Do you remember a time where Maya went up into an area where Danielle was on the phone with her mother? Okay, tell us about that.
When I first got there, the younger daughter was not there the first week. Apparently she was out of town somewhere, but she came back and she would spend most of her time in the room. And I had been helping Amaya that morning 2 or 3 times with her homework, with her schoolwork. She got a little frustrated. And she cried a little bit, and I said, "Be okay." But much to my, I didn't know everything was being watched on the camera from upstairs, and she was telling all this stuff to her mother. Well, then they pulled Amaya upstairs, and then I went up there, went into my bedroom to listen, and she slapped her in the face. And that night I called the husband, and I said, "Look, this kind of stuff can't go on." And instead of dealing with it, he just called his wife. And
okay, let me stop you there. When you got to see Amaya, did you see Amaya after she had left that
when she
room?
came out of the room,
Tell me what her face looked like.
her face was very red, and you could tell she'd had tears in her eyes, yes.
The kids ever talk to you, the Solander kids ever mention anything about hot water?
Yes.
Who told you about that?
Well, all 3 mentioned little bits here and there, but initially when they mentioned some of the stuff was hard to believe.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop you there. Tell me about these kids' demeanor when they're sharing this with you.
They're telling me in fear that they're getting in trouble.
Where are you guys? Do you remember where you'd be?
We're upstairs, and they told me that the mother had poured boiling water, and I can't remember which child it was, but poured boiling water over their head and scalded their head.
Sure. Do you ever remember a time where Amaya was like sick with like a sinus infection or something?
Yes.
What do you remember about that? Which week was that?
It was the 2nd week, and I got there on a Sunday night, and where's the Maya?
I want to stop you right here. Let's just set the stage for a second. What time of year is this?
This is the end of January, probably, maybe
So
the
it's
first week
winter
of
time.
February. It's winter time.
Okay,
Yes.
please continue. Go ahead.
So I got there Sunday night, and I said to the children, where's Amaya? And then he had said, and he said he had taken her to the emergency room at the weekend. She had sinuses. Well, where is she? She was outside in the cold, and it was bitterly cold out there that Sunday night, I remember. She's outside picking up dog poop, and she's white as a ghost. So I just put my arm around her, and I said, "Why don't you come inside?" I told her to quit what she was doing and brought her inside.
I want to turn your attention now to sleeping arrangements. Let's talk about the foster kids, Autumn and Ivy. Where did they sleep?
They had a nice room. They had their own room. They had a Winnie the Pooh TV and a regular bed. A nice.
What do you mean by a regular bed?
The regular bed that we all sleep in, like a regular twin bed with Winnie the Pooh sheets and a cover.
So they have like a duvet cover on it?
Pardon?
Like a comforter?
Yes, yes.
So they had sheets?
Sheets, yes.
Comforter?
Pillows, and yes.
And a normal twin size bed. They had TV in their room?
They had a Winnie the Pooh TV.
What other sort of things were in that room?
There was also a closet, obviously, with all the kids' clothes and stuff like that.
Okay. Any decorations and wallpaper?
Yes.
What sort of decorations, if you remember?
Honestly, don't remember, but I think I think most of the stuff was Winnie the Pooh.
And so did they each have their own bed?
That I don't remember because it was a twin bed, and I don't remember where the.
But you remember there at least being a bed?
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about where the Solander girls slept.
Down the hall, there was a large room, and I guess it was a large bedroom. They slept in there, and to my astonishment, they all slept on little cots on the floor.
How many of them had regular beds, like
None of
Autumn and Ivy?
None of the children.
Not one?
Not one.
These were the adopted kids. Their own children.
Their own children.
Did not have regular beds.
Not one bed.
Well, let me ask you this. Was there even room in that room for a twin-size bed?
Oh, definitely.
Or there room for two?
Yes, there
How
was
about
room.
three?
There was room.
Were there room for bunk beds?
Yes, but there was room for 3 individual twin beds. Yes.
So instead, what did they sleep on?
There was even room for dresses, but there was none there.
So they had no dressers even in that room?
No.
What did they sleep on again?
Cots on the floor.
Oh. How many comforters did they have?
No.
Well, I mean, let's take them one at a time. How many comforters did Amaya have?
None.
How many comforters did Ava have?
None.
How many comforters did Anastasia have?
None.
Did Dwight or Janet explain to you why they didn't have comforters, but the Autumn and Ivy did?
No.
Did Dwight or Janet offer you an explanation that maybe there was a medical diagnosis and part of the treatment plan was to not have a comforter on their beds?
No. They just had a little thin blanket. They had a thin blanket on their bed and a small pillow, and that was it.
Did you notice any differences between the clothing or kind of the quality of clothing that Autumn and Ivy wore versus the Solander kids?
Yes.
Tell us what the difference is that you noticed.
My first day there, when I had to walk to the bus stop, and the Solander children went to, this is my first time, go get their coats and shoes. And it was just like, I shouldn't use this expression, it was, to me, I felt like I was walking 3 urchins down the street. Little Amaya had to walk with a pair of cowboy boots, she didn't have any sneakers. And it was just horrifying for me.
Did they fit those shoes?
No.
Did you tell Dwight or?
I did. At the end of the first week, I told Dwight she needed a pair of shoes. You know, we'll go get some, and she never got any of them.
And let me just, maybe it's just I didn't hear you. When did you notice this thing with shoes that didn't fit? How early into this? First
I
week,
noticed
second?
in the first few days I was there.
Very first few days.
Yes.
So he tells you within the
Because
first
I'm
few.
walking to the bus stop, and she's walking with a pair of cowboy boots, or cowgirl boots, whatever, flip-flop, but you know these things, don't.
So let me ask you this. So you mentioned it to Dwight kind of immediately as you noticed it?
Yes, I do.
And he tells you, we're going to get her some
Well,
shoes?
there's some this weekend. Yes.
Okay. So that first weekend, Dwight comes home.
Yes,
And then did you show up the following Monday of week
I
2?
did.
Were there any new shoes in the house? Okay. Dwight then goes away for a week, right, or for 5 days.
Yes.
But he comes back for weekend number 2, right? That Monday of week 3, did you have any new shoes?
No.
Okay. And then you leave by the end of the 3rd week?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any morning chores for the Solander girls when they get up in the morning before they started their workday at homeschooling?
Yes, I used to wonder in the mornings why it took so long for the little one, Anastasia, to come downstairs. And then neighbor would say, well, she's doing her chore. And I said, she was only 7 at the time, I think it was 7. And I said, what did she have to do? She had to get a bucket of water with pine sol and go in there and clean the bathroom every morning.
How many times did,
And
let me just stop you there for a second. How many times did Autumn have to do that chore?
not at all.
How about Ivy?
They didn't have any chores.
Did Dwight or Janet explain why that child
No,
had to do
they
that?
told me nothing, no.
You mentioned those beds that Autumn and Ivy had, those nice beds with the comforters and stuff. Was one of the chores for Autumn and Ivy to make their own beds?
No.
Did the beds get made?
Yes.
Who made the beds?
Ava,
Ava made Autumn and Ivy's beds.
Ava's chore was to go make the beds of Autumn and Ivy. There was only one bed in there as far as I can remember.
Right, and Janet explained that at all?
Nope.
Let's talk about the times that you kind of would see White in the house, okay? Because, I mean, there were times that you guys would overlap a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Would he ever give you an explanation about why these rules were in place very much? What would he say about that, if anything?
There wasn't a lot said when he first came home one day. I approached him. About the rules, are you talking about the pennies or about the rules? Why they
Oh, please, just cover whatever rules you can remember.
Well, he just told me the reason about the panties, that he inspects their panties to look for infections and stuff of that nature.
How about the food stuff? Any explanation on that?
He just said they had intestinal problems.
Okay. You ever see White taking photographs of the kids, the Solander kids, when you be in the house?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Do you ever remember him photographing any, like, the underwear or anything like that?
No.
Okay. After the first couple of days, were you concerned about the things you were seeing inside the house with respect to the Solander homes?
Definitely.
Did, as the days and weeks continued, did your concern grow, or did it lessen, or did it stay the same?
Oh, no, it grew.
Why'd you stay?
I stayed mainly for the children's sake. I couldn't see children going through what they were going through. My heart ached for these children. They were brainwashed and nobody was helping them.
You mentioned that one of the little girls wanted you to take them away. Is that right?
They wanted to get in my car and come home to Laughlin, and I knew I couldn't do that.
Did it cross your mind, though?
It did cross my mind. It didn't even cross my mind to go to the nearest police station, but they wouldn't have helped.
And what were you worried about would happen if you picked up those girls and went to the police? What were you worried might happen?
I could have been arrested. I had a child kidnapped at my home, so I know. My child was gone for 9 years.
There's a point, though, that you leave at the end of about 3 weeks. Tell us about kind of what the breaking point is for. Why you leave?
But then, well, I thought I was letting the children down. I'd had enough. And the 19-year-old, who's their older daughter,
Danielle?
Danielle, I'd had some issues with her. And, she kind of shut up this and shut up that. She was telling, I forgot, the Friday morning I'm leaving, Janet Solander called to talk to me. It was about 9:30. And Dwight was there at that time. I can't remember if he'd come home early the night before or what. But she called to talk to me, and I think she was trying to get me to realize, she said, the girls are all lying to you, and for me not to believe all their lies. She said how they've lied to everybody and all this. They were telling me a bunch of lies, and I was manipulated by their lies.
So I want to stop you right there for a second. Okay. You said you mentioned you had a child. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 sons.
Okay. So in the course of raising your own kids, have you ever taught a kid telling a lie just in your own kind of experience?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so forget about the stuff that Janet told you about. I just want you to focus on those 3-5 days, those 5-day weeks that you had, the 3-5-day weeks that you had. Did you see these kids, the Solander girls, perpetually lying to you about everyday things in the house?
Never.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Okay, I mean, because you've had experiences where you catch kids lying, right, in your own past, and maybe your own kids or whatever. Okay, so you've had those experiences before. And you're saying in the 3 weeks that you were there, you didn't really see these kids lying to you on a regular basis?
No, I did not. Some of the things they told me, you wanted to believe they were not true.
Okay. And when you're saying things like the hot water and...
Or the issues like I have to do with the food, and is this really true?
Okay.
And as the week went on, it was so deplorable. It was just, Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't mean to cut you off. So you were, let's take you back to what you were saying. You were saying Janet was telling you, well, you know, don't believe all their lies, da, 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 da. Please continue.
She was, and this is in the atrium as you first go in the house, and she's telling me all this. Within the conversation, I said, I don't need to listen to all this. I've had enough. And the daughter was standing in the doorway too, and she said, shut up. And I don't need to listen to this, you know. And the little three girls are standing there looking at me, listening to all this, and they're crying. And so it went on, and I said, I just can't listen to any more than this, and they're making excuses. Look, they're all telling a bunch of lies. I said, I'm not going to listen to anything. I was standing there, was shaking. I was literally shaking. And then I started crying, and I said, I've got to leave. And I went out the door, and I was tempted right then to go to the police station. I didn't know. I was shaking. I was afraid to drive even. I really was. I was afraid to drive. And, and I said to Dwight right before I left, I said, can I please give these children a hug before I leave? And he said, yes. And I went over to give each child a hug, and I told them I'd be praying for them. And they were crying as they walked in the door. I will never forget it in my life. And I wanted to take it with me. I could have gone into Laughlin. I had no officers there, but what could they have done? And I was letting the children, I felt I let these children down.
So you leave.
I mean,
Did you call CPS to tell them about the things that you saw?
I can't remember when I called, but I called a few weeks later.
And did you describe the things that you've been kind of telling us about?
I do.
Do you get a call back from CPS?
Nothing.
But do you hear from Dwight again?
I did.
Ah. How does he contact you?
He sent me an email letter, and I also, they sent me a letter from Janet, a certainly letter for defamation of character.
You got a letter from Janet saying...
Apparently I got a letter. Unfortunately, they couldn't find my apartment apparently, but I had all kinds of TV stations contact me, and that's how they found out apparently I was there. But I got a letter in the mail, which I received later, to say she was suing me for defamation of character.
Oh, so she tried to sue you, or at least the letter said they were going to. Okay. What do you remember Dwight saying in his letter, if anything?
Well, most of the letter he said, explained why he checked the girls' panties and all this, and he explained about the eating and their intestinal orders and stuff like that. Most of the letter, he was just very defensive in there about everything, but the one thing that got to me mostly, he never had not one good thing to say about any three of the girls. And he said they did not, he said he'd never celebrated Valentine's Day, but yet I knew he went and had dinner with his wife Valentine's
You heard that
Day.
from Janet.
Yes, and he put that in the letter that he wrote to me. Yep.
So Janet had told you before that Dwight literally came to visit her for Valentine's
Yes,
Day,
yes.
and he told you,
Yes.
I'd never celebrated. That's right. I forgot about something, and I want to go back. Let's go back to mealtime for a second. So this, it had to be like liquid, right? No solids. And they had told you that they had intestinal issues, right? Let me ask you this, Janet. Do you ever sneak them some solid food?
I do.
Okay. What sort of solid food did you give them?
Occasionally in the morning, because I brought food with me from home, okay? Occasionally in the morning, I'd give them a piece of toast, but I had to be real careful because, let's say...
Did you
Pardon?
blend the toast?
Did I want
Did you blend up the toast?
No, of course not.
Okay, so
But I
just
was
serve
eating
regular
toast
toast.
myself, so, one of them would turn and smile, hey, where's my toast? So I gave a piece of toast, but I had to be very careful because anything I gave from my hand to her, the camera was watching.
You're watching those
okay?
cameras, huh?
So I would slide it in my hand down by my side, and I hand it to her, and I said, look, you better eat it over here, so part of your food.
So
And
let me stop you
but
there.
at nighttime, I could bring them stuff upstairs.
What sort of things did you bring?
After they were up there in their room, and they'd wait, and I'd make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Peanut butter and jelly?
sometimes I had to make sure I had pockets because I put them in a cellophane bag or a corn-cycle bag, and I would bring them sandwiches and,
You give Ava sandwiches?
yeah, send them.
Maya
Yes.
sandwiches? Anastasia sandwiches?
Yeah.
Okay. Week 1, are you doing this?
I am about this,
So like how many days into week 1 did you start giving them solid food?
probably the third day. You know, it
Day
wasn't until I was familiar with what was going on.
Sure,
on the
sure,
whole.
makes sense. How about day 4? You giving them solid food?
Yeah,
Day 5?
yeah,
Okay, week 2. Monday, you giving them solid food?
yes,
Tuesday?
yes,
Wednesday?
yes.
Thursday?
Yeah.
Friday?
Yeah.
Week 3, giving them solid food?
I was.
Okay. Well, every day, week 3?
I
Okay.
would bring them stuff upstairs at nighttime, yes.
Okay. Well, Janet, here's what I want to ask you. When you gave them the toast and the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on that first day, that Wednesday, did they uncontrollably start pooping all over themselves?
Absolutely
Peeing
not.
accidents? Throwing up uncontrollably?
Nothing.
How about Thursday with the solid food? Any bathroom or GI issues?
No, nothing.
Friday? Any issues?
I never had any issues like that.
But I just want to make sure the record's clear. So from what,
Maybe I should ask her answer.
week 2,
Oh,
with respect to the solid food, any accidents
No.
after giving solid food?
no.
Maybe I should ask her answer.
If- For week 2, let me repeat the question.
I think now it's asked and answered.
Okay. Week 3, any issue?
No.
How disobedient were the Solander kids when you would watch them?
They weren't.
Have you ever dealt with kids who were disobedient before at some point in your life?
All kids are disobedient at some stage.
Okay. So how badly behaved in terms of watching them were these Solander girls?
They weren't. Upstairs, I had to tell them sometimes to be quiet because they'd be outside the bathroom and giggling and laughing and telling me, don't talk, the camera's up there, and just silly stuff. You know, they were otherwise well behaved because they were always glad to see me and we got along, you know.
Did Ava ever talk to you about other rules that you didn't even know about?
No, I don't think so. I would ask her stuff about, like for example, I explained this, the bedroom was very large.
Okay.
But she would go up there at night and I wondered what the music, upstairs in the bedroom, there was a radio on the floor. That was the only form of communication they had with the outside world. And she'd be lying on the floor listening to either a favorite song or something like that. That was the only thing. They weren't allowed to watch TV or anything.
Was there a particular child of the Solander girls that Dwight and Janet complained about the most?
Yes.
Which one was that? What would they say?
That she had everybody buffaloed with her lies. In the letter he wrote to me, she said, oh, with those crocodile tears and puppy dog eyes. That's how he described his daughter he adopted. And I said, how in the world? These children have been through so much. When you adopt a child, you should adopt a child. They become part of your family.
Did Dwight ever tell you that Janet was a nurse?
Yeah.
Before you even started working at the Solanders, did you know that Janet wrote a foster care book? When you were working there for those 3 weeks, did you know that Janet wrote a foster care book?
No, I didn't.
When you went and called CPS, did you know that Janet wrote a foster care book?
No.
Have you even read this book?
No.
Do you even know what its title is?
No. I remember seeing it in the news, but I don't remember.
But that's like much later down the road. Okay? And when you did your interview with the police, did you know about the book? Okay. Court's indulgence. I'll just clarify this time frame. So you went and started there in January of 2013, is that right? And you worked for 3 weeks, is that right?
Right.
And you worked through at least Valentine's Day.
I did. Well,
Up
could
to
have been
2013.
before, but yes, I was there. on Valentine's. I think it was the 2 days after Valentine's Day is when I left on that week.
Okay, so 3 weeks walking back from February 16th, 2013. Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Ross.
Thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Finnegan. Now, you interviewed to respond to a job from the Craigslist posting, correct? Okay. So in response to that Craigslist posting, well, let's start with this. At the time that you responded to the ad, you were not a professional nanny, right? You were just responding to a Craigslist ad and you agreed to accept a position to be paid under the table cash.
Right.
And you were paid for that under the table cash. You were paid $450 per week for the 3 weeks that you were there.
Right.
And you are acknowledging that you actually paid for your services, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you met with the Solanders, they indicated to you that they needed a part-time nanny because Mrs. Solander had to be away in Ohio to help her daughter who just had a baby.
Right.
And Mr. Solander worked, so the children had to have.
Yep.
Okay. So he was gone directly. Okay. And you wanted the children to homeschool.
Yes.
And so one of your duties would be to ensure that they were actually completing all of their homeschooling tasks.
Right.
And you did that.
Yes.
So Monday through Friday, the girls would begin their schoolwork approximately 9 or 9:30. And they would continue until about 2 or 2:30. Is that your memory?
Approximately.
Okay. And then they would get a break.
Right.
And then everyone would go take that break, either use the restroom or you could go and pick up the foster child from the school bus.
Correct.
Okay. And part of their homeschooling was making sure that they did all of their assignments, right?
Right.
Now, your instructions for the week were given to you every Monday by Dwight.
Yes.
And in fact, he told you this is their food schedule for the week.
Yeah, but it didn't differ from the first week to the second.
My question to you is, the instructions came from Dwight as to what the children would eat for the week.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the instructions were also from Dwight as to what schoolwork needed to be completed. for
Yes.
the week.
Yes.
Okay. Those instructions did not come from Janet.
No.
In fact, you did not have contact with Janet on a daily basis for those 3 weeks.
No.
And she didn't give you instructions as far as food or schoolwork for the
No.
weeks, for any of those 3 weeks.
Right.
And then you were also instructed that part of your duties for the homeschooling included grading the children's homework.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you had to spend time in the evenings doing that.
Yes.
So let's talk about the children's schedules for the days. There were a total of 5 children that you were charged with taking care of in this home. Is that a yes?
Yes. I'm sorry.
I acknowledge
Yes.
that you nodded for the
Yes,
record.
I'm sorry. Yes.
No, that's fine. It's just this is a recorded proceeding, so they don't see the nodding. So we had 5 children, and 3 of them were the Solander girls, their actual children.
Yes.
Okay. And their ages were varied from approximately 7 through 10, or
7, 9, and 11 at the time.
Thank you. That's what I was referring to. Thank you. 7, 9, and 11.
Correct.
So they were older children. They were able to dress themselves in the morning.
Oh, of course.
You didn't have to put clothes on them.
No, I went looking and helping them find clothes.
My question to you is, you didn't have to dress them.
No, I didn't have to dress them.
They could dress themselves.
Right.
They could feed themselves.
Yes.
Okay. They went and took showers by themselves.
Yes.
They didn't have to ask permission to go take showers in the mornings.
No. They showered.
No, that was just part of their morning routine. They
They
would
showered,
get up
yeah.
and they would shower,
Yes.
and then they would come downstairs for breakfast.
Right.
And then after breakfast, they would start their schoolwork. Right?
After breakfast, yes.
Now, the other 2 children in the home were foster children. And they were younger. They were, one was like kindergarten or 1st grade age, right?
Correct.
And then the other one was stay-at-home age. She was pre-preschool. Okay, so she would have been maybe 4.
Something like that. I don't remember. She was small, yes. Kindergarten.
Okay. So that was a child that you had to take a little more initiative on and help her with more personal care tasks, like getting dressed in the morning. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. You have to make sure and then help her make sure that she had her baths in the evenings.
Right.
Because the foster children were on a separate schedule, right?
They were completely separate schedules.
Okay. Because one went to school during the day,
Right.
and the other one was able to play because she couldn't participate in the homeschooling. Just not age appropriate.
Right.
Okay. So she would, play. There were other things for her to do. Sorry about that. And then in the evenings, that's when the foster children would take their baths.
I guess, yes.
You recall giving a statement in this case?
They would take the shower in the evening, yes.
Okay. They would take the showers in the evening. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this disclosure that Amaya had a seizure. So the middle child was Amaya.
Right.
And when you first took the job, you were informed she had a seizure.
I was not informed she had a seizure.
Okay.
The child told me that.
Okay.
Maya told me.
All right, but you learned that as a result of taking care of her, and you actually had to give her, at least for the first week,
The medication.
seizure medication.
Yes, I did it, yes.
Okay, and that's something that came from the parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Dwight instructed you to make sure that she had
Yes.
a seizure
Yeah.
medication.
Or,
And then as a nanny, you absolutely gave it to her. Okay. So you were nanny for a 3-week period from the end of January through roughly the middle of February of 2013, right?
yes.
Okay, and Amaya had just had a seizure and been hospitalized the Christmas week of December of 2012.
Objection, seems facts not in evidence.
It's my recollection she
You
said.
can ask the question differently, that's sustained.
To your knowledge, Amaya was in the hospital Christmas week in December of 2012 because of seizure.
I didn't know which week in December she was in the hospital. I just knew it was before Christmas.
Okay, so
Because I had asked the children, did you have a nice Christmas? And Maya said I was in the hospital. I had a seizure, and that's how I found out about the seizure.
okay. Now you testified that the girls had no toys. It was just very sad in the house. That's what you
It was
just testified
Lego
to
and
on
stuff,
the
coloring books and Lego, and the Lego belonged to the other children, Amaya and Ivy. Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I get this correct. You testified that there were no toys in the house, there was nothing for the girls to do, correct?
I said it earlier, but that's all there was the Lego and the coloring books. But other
Okay,
than
so
that,
there were actually toys. There were coloring books.
yes.
There was, there was a TV with Winnie the Pooh.
Up in the yes, up in the bedroom.
Okay, and then there was a family room, right?
Yes.
And there was a big TV in the family room,
It
right?
was.
Okay. And you were a nanny only Monday through Friday, right?
Yes.
So you have no knowledge of what happened on the weekends in this house.
I have a knowledge only from what the kids told me. Yes.
So you have no personal knowledge about what happened in that house on the weekends.
No.
Okay. Now you also testified that the girls had only one of the Solander girls only had one book to read, and that was her grade.
Yes.
Okay. But isn't it true that after all of the dinner time and the schoolwork was done, the kids would play together?
All the kids played together. Yeah, they played together, and I played with them too. I
Okay.
used to teach the kids how to juggle because I juggled, and they had a lot of fun. Yes.
Okay. So they weren't just sitting around or standing around in the kitchen for the entire period that you were in the home for the 3 weeks.
No, Ava helped me in the kitchen, in fact. Yes.
And Ava was the eldest, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you shared with us your parent, right?
Pardon?
You shared with us your parent as well.
Yes.
Okay. Children have chores as part of being a member of a household, right?
Of course.
Okay. And part of that is making sure that they, help with things like the dishes, right?
Yes.
And help with things like cleaning up after themselves in the bathroom, right?
Right.
Okay. And if there is a dog in the home, there are chores like making sure that there's turns picking up the dog food, right?
Right. But not in nice cold weather when the child is sick.
Okay. We can get to that in a minute. But part of being a member of a household is having chores for the children, right?
Of course.
Okay. So the children were not required to vacuum and clean and mop and dust, right?
Right.
Okay. They weren't grading their own homework, right?
No.
They weren't tasked with taking Autumn to the bus stop on their own, right?
No.
They weren't taking the dog out or walking them or doing anything like that, right?
Right.
Okay. Now you talked about how the children never went outside to play in the backyard. I want to direct your attention to the backyard. The backyard was full of rocks, right?
No, there was grass there too, because the dog would go out occasionally and there was dog food in the backyard.
Okay, so the backyard was reserved for the dogs, right?
Correct,
Okay. And the Solanders lived in a gated community, right?
they did.
Okay. And in that gated community, they lived in basically like a cul-de-sac, right?
Yes.
Okay, and one of the houses was vacant, right? It just wasn't used, the one near the end of the cul-de-sac, right?
I don't remember a vacant house, because the only place I walked to the gate to take the child to school, I didn't go down that street.
Okay, but there was a street with a cul-de-sac, right?
I think so, I don't remember that, because I would just come in and park my car, and so I don't remember how it cul-de-sac anywhere.
Okay, well, you were only there for 3 weeks, to be fair.
I don't remember a cul-de-sac.
Okay. But you know that the children had bicycles, right?
I do.
Okay. Let's talk about these cameras. So you testified on direct that you've never seen anything like that. Are you familiar with nanny cams?
Of course.
Okay. Are nanny cams illegal?
No, they're not illegal.
Okay. And you're aware that Amaya had just had a seizure
Yes,
in December,
yes.
and Janet was not home for a period of 3 weeks when you were nannying, right?
Right.
That's just my question. I'll ask another.
Yeah.
Okay. You have no knowledge about whether or not the cameras were working.
Oh, I do.
You don't have any knowledge about whether or not they were working because you didn't actually run the cameras, right?
No, I did not run the cameras, no.
Okay. You don't know if they were plugged in.
They were plugged in, because they were in use. Yes.
If they were plugged in, you don't have any personal knowledge about whether or not they were running all the time.
No, I don't.
You don't have any personal knowledge about whether they were recording anything.
No,
You don't have any personal knowledge about whether they had audio enabled, either.
I don't.
You don't. You just visually saw that there were nanny cams in the home, 2 of them.
I know more than that, because the daughter used to communicate with
I'm
her
not
mother.
asking what the daughter told you. I'm
Objection,
asking.
I'd ask my witness to be allowed to finish her answer. She's explaining how she has personal knowledge.
She's explaining hearsay.
That
Well,
would be
you already
personal
said-
knowledge.
Not
Excuse me, ma'am. So that's sustained.
You didn't actually have any knowledge
Your Honor, can my
about.
witness finish her answer?
I'll
Would be
speak.
asked if she could.
To explain some of the answers. All right, go on, Ms. McNeese.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Finnegan, just quite simply, you don't have any personal knowledge about how the cameras worked in that house.
No.
Okay. Now, you were asked about a lot of rules that may have been in the Solander home. As a parent yourself, you understand that there are rules for children. Okay. And that they didn't have to ask to go take showers, right?
No.
None of the children, in fact, not one of the 5 of them ever had to ask to actually go in and take a shower, right?
No, but I would check to make sure that they take the shower.
Okay, well, sure, because that's one of your tasks that you had to do is make sure that they were make sure that they at least bathe themselves. Okay. In the mornings, they went to the bathroom without permission, right?
Yes.
And in fact, the Solander girls only had to ask for permission to use the bathroom while they were doing their homeschool studies between 9 and 2 or 2:30.
No, it was most of the time during the time I was there, they asked permission to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Yes.
But in the mornings, they got up and they went to the bathroom without asking.
Yes, they went when they first got up, I guess. I was told to go in there and wake them up approximately at 7:30 a.m.
Okay. Get them going so they could take their showers.
Yes.
But they didn't ask you for permission to get out of the bed.
No.
Or they didn't ask you for permission to leave the room.
No.
They didn't ask you for permission to enter from the loft bedroom into the bathroom to go take a shower.
No.
Okay. You testified that you did not give any of the Solander girls water during the day.
Correct.
So for 3 Mondays, 3 Tuesdays, 3 Wednesdays, 3 Thursdays, and 3 separate Fridays, when you were there 24/7, you never gave the children water?
I gave the older one water, yes.
You gave the older one water once?
Maybe once or twice, maybe twice. I don't remember exactly.
So for 15 days, between 5 children, you gave water to one twice?
I probably gave the younger one water, but I don't remember exactly how many times I gave him.
Okay.
I could not give him much water because the cameras were on me all the time.
Oh, okay, so you said I couldn't give them much water. So you actually did give them water?
I gave him a little bit of water, yes.
Because water goes with their meals?
Water did not go with their meals.
Okay. So if it's your testimony that you were under specific instruction to withhold water when, let's just go first Monday. The first Monday of the first week. If you were under specific instruction not to give the children water, and that raised a red flag to you, did you call CPS that day?
No, I did not.
Did you call the police that day?
No, I did not.
Okay. So let's move to the second Tuesday of the first week. If you were under specific instructions not to give any of the children water at all, did you call CPS that day?
I did not.
Okay. Did you call the police that day?
I did not.
What about that whole first week? Did you call the CPS or the police about not being able to give those children water at all the first week?
I did not.
Okay. What about the second week? At any point during the second week, did you call CPS or the police about how bad these girls were treated?
I did not.
Okay. What about the third week, that third week before? Did you call CPS or the police after that? Or on that third week?
I did not. I wanted to. I did not.
But you did not?
I did not.
Okay. Now, the children got a breakfast. All 5 of them got breakfast. Okay. And in order to prepare the oatmeal for the Solander girls, you had to use some sort of water or milk source, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you did so?
Sure.
Okay. Because there was water and milk in the fridge.
I just made it with water.
Okay. The other girls had cereal,
Yes.
and they had cereal with milk, right?
I did it.
Okay, so there was milk in the fridge.
There was.
Okay. Now, it's your testimony that you had to prepare their dinner in a blended fashion, right? Okay. And that you had to blend a meat, a vegetable, and some sort of grain like a bean.
Yes.
Okay. So they got basic food groups, right?
Yes.
Okay. You testified that the same thing every day. You had such a problem with it, you didn't call the police, you didn't call CPS, right?
I did not.
Okay. Now you also testified about how upsetting it was to you about how Valentine's Day was handled. So I want to direct your attention to that. Valentine's Day is not a major holiday, correct?
Correct.
It's not a religious holiday, right?
Right.
It's not a birthday, right?
Nope.
It's not Christmas. It's not Easter, right?
Nope.
It has nothing to do with a religious observation, right?
Right.
Okay. And both of the parents were not physically home on Valentine's Day.
That's right.
Dwight was at work, right?
Correct.
And Janet had been away for the 3-week period because she had
Yeah,
family
that's
to
what
attend
we
to at all times. You have to,
Yes.
try to speak, just
Yes.
because we can't both speak, okay? All right, so, and Janet wasn't there?
No.
Okay. Oh, and just to be clear, you were testifying about, you run loads of laundry in the house, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that none of the children had a major pooping, peeing, or vomiting episode, right? That was your yes.
Yes, it's a yes.
I appreciate
It
that.
was about 11 o'clock at night, in fact.
Right. The only reason I said is that a yes is because you said mm-hmm.
Yes.
The recording doesn't discern between mm-hmm and so just yes or no.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And you had to change your sheets, right?
Yes.
Okay. And there were sheets in the house.
Hard to find. No.
Okay. But there were sheets at least on the bed.
There were sheets on the bed, but I
There were
needed.
sheets on her bed, and you had to wash them.
It
You had
was
to run a
maybe 1 o'clock at not call me.
Oh, did not?
She did not.
You were not confronted at all about, you let her go to school like that and you didn't wash your hair?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Absolutely
No.
not.
It's overruled.
It's a statement from the defendant.
I don't think it's being offered for the truth.
It's not
All right.
experiment. So it's your testimony that Janet did not call and confront you about the vomit in her hair?
She did not call because when the little girl got done with her shower, as a mother, I would not allow a little girl to go back to bed. The vomit was all out of her hair. And I got all the tangles out of her hair. She had beautiful blonde hair. And why would I let a little girl go back to bed with vomit in her hair?
That's right, why would you?
She did not.
Objection, it's argued.
That's
as-
sustained.
Permission to approach.
Sure.
Now, you gave a statement to police in this case, right?
Can I see what she's approaching the witness with?
Of course.
Show it to Ms. Solander, page 50.
Page 50. Okay, thanks.
You gave a statement to police in this case, right?
Yes, I did.
And you talked about the incident with Autumn's hair, right?
I talked about her having vomited that night. Yes.
Okay. So I'd like you to read this to yourself. The underlined passage to direct your attention to.
Okay.
When you're done reading that, look up and I'll ask you more questions.
She did not.
I have not asked you a
Okay.
question.
Ms. McGinnis will now ask you a question, so just look at it quietly to yourself.
Okay. Now, did I give you an opportunity to refresh your memory about what statement you provided to police about the Autumn vomiting incident?
It can refresh my memory only to the point at night when she went back to bed.
I'll ask you another question. My question was if it refreshed your memory. You said it did. So in your statement to police, you said that the mother called and started cussing me out on the phone and said, you let her go to school like that and you didn't wash her hair.
I washed her hair for 10 minutes. in
My
the
question to you was you gave a statement to police, and in that statement to police, you indicated that Janet called you on the phone, started cussing me out on the phone, and said, you let her go to school like that and you didn't wash her hair.
I did not give a statement to police like that because that's not even, my statement came back. I did not. And I did not talk to her on the phone. She did not call cussing me out.
Okay. So
I
it's
first
your-
heard about that when the daughter,
Well, objection, unresponsive. I'll ask you another question.
Sure.
It's your testimony that you did not give that statement to police.
correct.
Okay. Now, you testified about the layout of this house. It was a two-story house, right? Okay. And you said that there were approximately 3 bathrooms to your knowledge, right?
My name.
Okay. Now, on the first floor, there was 1 bathroom, right?
Correct.
But it's actually a half bathroom, right?
Yes.
It means it's a toilet only.
Yes, toilet and washing basin. Yeah.
Oh, sure, and wash basin. So no one can take showers in that bathroom?
Right.
Okay. Now, the upstairs bathroom, that was the main bathroom everyone used, that's a full bathroom, right?
Yes.
And it has actually 2 wash basins, right?
Yes.
So it's a larger full-size bathroom. And it has a full tub and shower, right?
Yes.
And a toilet.
Yeah.
And that's the one that primarily the Solander girls used, right?
No, it's not. I think there was another bathroom down the hall because they went and used the bathroom in a different place than where they took the shower.
Okay, so they had 2
Another
different
bathroom
bathrooms.
down the hall.
Okay, so my question is, they had 2 bathrooms then that they could use?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you testified on direct that during your job interview, there were no hugs or kisses of the children. Now, your job interview didn't last all day, right?
No, I was only there for about an hour and a half.
Okay. And in that hour and a half, the Solanders were focused on trying to interview you, right?
Yes.
They wanted to assess to make sure that you would be a good fit for them, right?
Correct.
That you were qualified to actually take care of 5 different children, including 2 foster children, right? That you would be able to understand the different needs that would be required of you, right?
Right.
Okay. So for the other 22 and a half hours of the day, you don't know what contact those parents had with their children.
Correct.
Okay. testified that children didn't get to play outside. When you were working there, it was January, right?
January, February, yes.
Okay. And so they had to do homeschooling during the day, right?
Correct.
So it's not, well, strike that. Then afterwards, it would have been dark in the evenings after dinner, right?
Yes.
So playtime was done inside in the warm, right?
Yeah, I took them outside sometimes and played ball with them.
Okay.
They needed to get some fresh air, so I took them outside.
Okay, so you took them outside.
Yes.
Okay. Did you make sure that they had their jackets on?
Of course.
Okay, so they had jackets to keep them
Yeah.
warm. They were properly dressed when you took them outside.
Of course.
Okay? This is a house that had working electricity, right?
Correct.
So in the winter, the heater was working, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you testified on direct examination about the beds the Solander girls slept in. You identified them as cots, right?
Yes.
And they were full-size cots for the girls, right?
Yes, but these are things you would sleep on camping.
My question to you is they were full-size, right?
Yes, they're full
They,
size.
they weren't like, you know, the little kindergartner ones, right?
It's not, no. I've never seen any like that.
Okay, fair enough. I'm only asking for your knowledge.
Yeah.
If you don't know, you don't know, that's
Right.
there. So the girls had full-size cots. They had bedding on those cots, right?
Right?
They had sheets.
Yes.
They had pillows.
It was a pillow, yes.
So each one had their own bedding.
Yes.
Okay. And you were aware that the, at least Dwight said that the girls had wedding issues, correct?
No, he didn't tell me they had wedding issues.
Okay. But you were aware that he reviewed their underwear before it went into the laundry to touch the
Yes.
soil underwear?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
All right, Ms. Finnegan, you testified about a slapping incident involving Danielle and, I believe, a minor. All right. So Danielle was the older biological sibling, right?
Yes.
Okay. Danielle was probably college age, early college age.
Correct.
She didn't live in the home regularly, but you did see her at some point in the week. She came back,
She
right?
came back the second week I was there.
The second week. Okay. Now, did you listen one?
Please.
Of course.
Excuse me.
Ms. Finnegan, can you take water? Now, you testified about the slapping incident. You didn't actually witness the slapping, right?
I didn't.
Okay. You weren't in the room for that.
No.
You don't know what conversation happened leading up to that.
Right.
You don't have any personal knowledge whether or not that was even condoned by either Janet or Dwight, right?
No, I don't.
Because it's your testimony that was Danielle who slapped the child, right?
It was.
So you weren't present for any potential, well, I won't ask you to speculate, but you weren't there to see what led up to that conversation or Janet's responses, if any.
I was not.
Okay. You spent a fair amount of time with these girls, 15 separate days, the whole day, right?
Yes.
So you testified about how worried you were for them and how upsetting this was for you, just in retrospect, and you were very emotional, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that the girls begged to come home with you, right?
Did it?
Okay. The girls never disclosed anything about being beaten, right?
Right.
They never told you that they were beaten.
No.
You did not see any bruising or just physical indications that they had been beaten with anything,
I
right?
did not.
And because you're a compassionate person, had you seen that? Did you call the police? Did you call TPS?
I would possibly.
Okay. The girls never disclosed to you anything about being whipped with paint sticks, right?
No.
Okay. They never disclosed to you anything about having catheters inserted into them, right?
Right.
They never disclosed anything about when they had accidents in their pants that they had to parade around like babies, right?
Right.
They never said anything about having to put their underwear either on their head or in their mouths, right?
Correct.
They never said anything about their mother threatening them with anything, right?
Right.
Instead, what they told you is that when they would get into trouble, their mother would yell at them, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the slapping incident involving Danielle, Amaya had been called up because she'd done something that was deemed to be in trouble, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the mother wanted to talk to her, ostensibly. If you know.
Over the computer, because she wasn't in the home.
Exactly. All right. Now you acknowledge that the Solanders tried to file a civil lawsuit against you, right?
Correct.
For defamation of character.
Correct.
Because they were upset that you had made statements in the neighborhood about them, right?
Correct.
Okay, found it very offensive, right?
Correct.
Your parting with them was not on good terms, right?
Correct.
In fact, they fired you, right?
No, you did not. I decided to leave.
Okay, you decided to leave, but you left all of your stuff there?
No, I did not. I left the road behind.
You left the road behind.
That was all I did not.
Okay, so Mr. Solander actually had to mail you your items and FedEx them to you, right? It wasn't just a rope. He had to FedEx a number of items to you that you left
No,
in the
I left
home.
my road there.
Okay. And you and Mr. Solander had email correspondence about what was left in the home, right?
Yes, we did.
And you kept saying, and you emailed him and said, I need the tracking number, right?
I did.
Okay.
Because he had FedEx and stuff to me, and I received it fine.
Okay, then we did. We
Yeah.
followed up.
Yeah.
You were paid even though the party was not amicable.
Yes.
Okay. And he returned your items to you, right?
Sure. You did.
Now, this blow up at the end that caused you to leave on whatever terms you're indicating, that had to do with the way that you spoke to Danielle, right?
Not entirely. That morning, Janet had called me that morning.
Okay. But in your interactions with Danielle, she was a college-age student, and she was home all day long, or the last week.
Yes.
Okay. And you told her that she needed to get up and get a job and stop being lazy, right?
Correct.
And that started a verbal confrontation between the two of you, right?
That morning, but I had tried.
Okay, but that's my question
Oh,
to you.
that morning, yeah, correct.
Right. And both Dwight and Janet did not want you speaking to Danielle in that way, right?
She told me to shut up. Yes.
Okay. She didn't want you speaking to Danielle in that way.
Right.
Her child.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Finnegan, just a few more questions. We are almost done. So when I was approaching you and I had you read that statement that I asked about for the police, it's your testimony that if it's in this statement, it's a lie.
Correct.
Okay. Now, redirecting your attention to the issue of whether or not the girls could have water. The girls could drink water in the bathroom, right?
I don't know if they drank water in the bathroom or not.
Okay, so you just have no knowledge about
Correct.
that. They didn't have to ask permission to have water, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you testified on direct about how upset you were that Amaya was outside, or one of the children, I believe it's Amaya, was outside picking up the dog food.
Yes.
Okay. And that it was so offensive to you or objectionable to you because it was night and it was cold, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, under your care, the girls were allowed to play outside in the cold, but not pick up dog poop?
She was sick with a sinus infection, so it seemed inappropriate she should be outside at night.
But her parent,
She was very pale and she was sick.
Dwight, took her to the doctor for that sinus infection, right?
Correct.
So the parents had already attended to her medical needs as far as the sinus infection, right?
Objection, call for speculation.
State your question.
I said, so the parents had already taken to the child for medical attention. They'd already attended to the medical needs, right?
That's the question.
Yes. It's that they'd already attended to the
I
medical
think
needs.
she knows.
To your knowledge, the parent, Dwight, had already attended to the child's sinus medical needs.
I don't know for sure. He said he did.
Okay,
I don't know if that was the case or not.
okay. But Amaya had prescription medicine for that sinus infection, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Wasn't taking
okay. But to the extent that Amaya had any medication that was prescribed by a doctor, you did give it to her.
Yeah.
After your statement to CPS, you eventually became aware through the media about the coverage of this case and that the girls were removed, right?
Only through what I saw on TV a year later.
Okay.
That's the only time I found out about it.
Okay. And now you feel guilty about not coming forward sooner, right?
No, at the time when I left the home, I got a little down, but now I don't feel guilty about it.
Okay.
No, there's no reason to feel guilty.
All right. So let's talk about that when you left the home.
Yes.
You left on a Saturday morning or afternoon,
It
right?
was a Friday morning.
It was a Friday morning.
I think he came home Thursday night, but it was a Friday morning. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't actually report anything to CPS until the Tuesday morning afterwards.
I'm not sure what day of the week it was when I called.
Okay, but it wasn't the weekend. You didn't report anything over the
I
weekend.
did not.
And you didn't report anything the same day that you left Friday then?
I did not.
Okay, so you waited until a weekday to make that report?
Of course.
Okay, and you called and wanted to follow up on what had happened, right?
Correct.
Okay. You knew that the CPS investigated your allegations and that it was unsubstantiated, right?
Objection, calls for speculation.
I said you knew, so to your knowledge, CPS investigated. To your knowledge, CPS investigated, and it was unsubstantiated.
Yes.
Okay, pass the witness.
I think she's a lack of personal knowledge as to
Well, that
that.
would be,
It's speculation, she wouldn't know.
Well, she
well,
specified.
it's hearsay in advance, it would be sustained,
Just
in
strike.
disregard. Ladies and gentlemen, before I move into the redirect examination, we're going to take just a quick break, just about a little over 10 minutes. Let's just go to 11:10. During the brief recess, you're reminded that you're not to discuss the case or anything related to the case with each other's emails. You're not to read live testimony reports or commentaries on the case and personal subject matter related to the case. Do not do independent research on the internet or any other media. Please don't form or express an opinion on the trial. Please place your notepads in your chairs and follow the double doors.
All right.
And ma'am, please don't discuss the testimony.
Okay, and I think she kind of followed up with none of the instructions came from Jen. If you remember something along those lines, questions like that, like whatever instructions you got, they were coming from Dwight, but not. Remember those questions? Okay. Let me ask you this. During the 3 weeks, you had opportunities to talk with Janet, right? And there were times she called, correct?
One time.
Okay. When she called, did you ever complain about any of the instructions Dwight was giving?
No.
Did she ever send you emails or anything saying, hey, look, I don't want you to do X as Dwight instructed, please do
No,
something
never.
different?
No.
No complaints about any instructions Dwight's given you?
No.
During your interactions with her, was Janice someone who was shy about voicing her opinions?
No, not to my knowledge.
We were asked some questions about the time that one of the children said she had she told she had a seizure or something along those lines. Did any of the kids ever talk to you about fainting or anything like that
Objection beyond the scope of the right or cross.
in relation to the seizure? Did any of the children ever talk to you about fainting or feeling weak?
Amaya did, yes.
Was this the same child who told you about the seizure? Was it
Amy
someone
used to
that-
tell me she would get weak also.
Okay. Okay. Did they explain to you why they felt weak like this?
Ava felt like
Objection, calls for speculation, hearsay.
State your question.
Did she explain to you why she felt like this? Our response is that it's not speculative, and if it's the objection of speculation, it's not speculative.
Overruled.
Well, it's also hearsay, and it
It's
calls
not
for a
stated.
medical opinion of two girls.
State of mind of the declarant. It's not.
At the time, she was feeling weak.
At the time, she stated because she was hungry. people get weak a lot.
You remember the portion of cross-examination that talked about all the toys that were in the house? You remember that part of cross-examination?
Yes, I do.
Identified as Legos
Legos
and a coloring book. Is that right?
maybe,
No. Let me focus on my question. You remember opposing counsel telling you that the toys in the house were Legos and a coloring book.
Objection, this states the testimony was coloring books.
Oh, I'm sorry, coloring books. In your experience, is a coloring book a toy?
no, I don't believe it's a toy.
Okay. And whose Legos were they? Who were the owners of the Legos as
I
far as you
believe
knew?
they belonged to Olive and Ivy.
Okay, so the foster girls.
I might be wrong, but that's why I would believe they belong.
How many personal Lego sets did the Solander children have? How many dolls did they have?
Not one dog.
How many board games did they have, as far as you knew?
Well, I think it was board games, but I didn't see them. The children told me they were in the parents' room.
Well,
the board
objection, you're
games.
saying lack of personal knowledge.
Well, I didn't see any board games.
No. You please continue in your answer. Go ahead.
We
Okay.
didn't see any board games.
I did not.
All right.
No.
How many dolls? Were you talking about dolls?
We did, and I said I had never
Okay.
seen any dogs.
Just
Yeah.
making sure. You were also asked on cross-examination, well, there was a TV in the house, is that right?
Correct.
When you were there when Dwight or Janet was present, how much TV did the Solander girls get to watch?
Objection, this states the testimony should be testified in.
That's not a misstatement of
Okay,
testimony.
when they were, your question is when both parents were present.
Correct.
All right.
How much?
I was only present when both of them were there, right before, when I went for the interview, that's the only time
Right.
both parents were
Let's
present.
take that one. We'll take it one at a time. So that first time when Janet and Dwight are there, how much TV are the kids watching?
I don't know, because when I was there that afternoon, they were in the kitchen doing schoolwork. and
Because
they
they
were
weren't
sit-
watching TV.
They were not watching TV, they were doing schoolwork. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did you ever see Janet again in person?
In person, no.
Okay, great. Now, let's talk about the times when Dwight would come home and there'd be an overlap of you being in the house with Dwight. When you come over and Dwight would be there, how often would those kids be watching TV?
They never watched TV.
Okay. Were you given any instructions about TV?
I was not.
Okay. Did they say they were allowed to watch TV?
They told me they weren't allowed to watch TV.
On cross-examination, you were asked about the fact that Solander girls, when you were home with them, would get to play with the foster kids, correct? Now that's after they've been doing schoolwork from 9 till 2 or 3.
Right.
And that's when you're present in the home.
Yes,
Okay, and when you're alone in the home with them, right?
yes.
Let's talk about when that first time you went over and Janet and Dwight were there in the house together with all these kids. Are those Solander girls playing with the foster kids?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about the times where you're in the home with Dwight and there's overlap. You're physically in the house when Dwight's in that house. Are those Solander girls playing with the foster kids?
No.
But when you're there alone, you allow them to play together.
Oh, definitely.
Then there was a litany of questions about children having chores. Do you remember that?
I do.
And you were asked things like cleaning up the bathroom can be a chore, correct?
Right.
Cleaning up the dog poop can be chores. Do you remember those questions?
Right, yeah.
Let's talk about the dog poop for a second. Whose dog was it? Who was the owner of the dog?
I honestly don't know. The only dog I remember,
Objection, lack of personal
Let
knowledge.
her finish her answer.
She just said I don't know, lack of personal
I
knowledge.
remember the only
Hold on.
dog.
Okay, so you don't know whose dog it was?
I don't remember it being a family dog. I really don't.
Monster Hammer.
So you didn't believe it to be a family dog.
Correct.
So you didn't believe it to actually be owned by any of the Solander girls
No, they wasn't.
or the foster girls.
Correct.
Okay. So one of these children is picking up poop of a dog that doesn't belong to them.
Objection, mistakes the testimony. She doesn't know whose dog it was.
She stated,
Okay, that's overruled.
So this child is picking up the dog's poop to a dog that doesn't belong to them.
Correct.
Did you ever see these children playing with this dog?
No.
When Dwight is home and there's overlap, are you seeing any of these kids playing with this dog?
No, if I remember, because I was only there for 3 weeks, I think there was a dog in a cage. There was a cage in the dining, but the dog was never loose in the house.
Okay, but so to be clear, you're not seeing these children playing or interacting with
No,
the dog.
with a dog. No.
But you are seeing one of these Solander girls picking up its poop.
Pick up that food, yes.
And I think some of the chores, you were asked about cleaning up the bathroom could be a chore. And how old was the child that was cleaning up the bathroom?
7 years old.
Okay, so not the older kids.
No, the youngest.
Did the foster kids ever share in that chore ever?
Never, never.
Let me ask you this. In your experience, is making a bed a chore that kids do?
Oh, yeah.
But the Solander kids were cleaning up or making whose bed?
The older Solander child had to make, I can't remember which, the beds in the foster care's bedroom.
So they were
their
making
bed.
other children's beds?
Correct.
Not their own, other children.
Correct.
How many chores did Janet assign to the foster children, as far as you know?
Not as far as I know.
How many chores did Dwight assign to the foster children?
Not as far as I know.
Then there were questions about nanny cameras. Remember, nanny cameras aren't against the law. Do you remember that?
Correct.
Okay. Please describe to this jury what the Solander's children's reaction are to these cameras.
They were frightened because they couldn't be themselves. They felt like the cameras, even for me, they'd tell me, watch the cameras watching you all the time. I had to be on the, kind of not defensive, but I had to be careful of what I was doing all the time. I had to be careful not to give them food throughout the day or anything I did. I was watched.
Unresponsive.
It's responsible.
Ask Mr. Hammer, just ask him this question.
I mean, typically nanny cameras are there to watch the nannies, right?
Correct.
But the children in the house are afraid of them. In this house.
In their, yes, definitely.
Then you were asked questions about, well, you don't have personal knowledge about whether the cameras were working. Do you remember those series of
Oh,
questions?
of course.
And at one point you said, no, I knew they were working. You remember when you said
Yes.
that? You didn't really get a chance to expound, so please, tell us what you meant. What did you see or observe that led you to believe that the cameras were working, at least at some point in time while you were in that house?
Because one morning, when I was having an issue, I had been helping Amaya with some schoolwork, and she was getting very frustrated, and she was crying. And I was not aware at the time that I'd been helping her on a certain piece of homework 2 or 3 times, that the cameras are on her, and Danielle was home this specific week. And that was the very, very same day that Danielle had slapped her in the face. She communicated with her mother through Skype in Ohio all the time, and Danielle was watching the downstairs, watching what was going on. Well, she wasn't just watching, she was listening to what was going on. So I knew they were working. No doubt they were working.
Do you remember there being a time where Janet started complaining to her about kind of the way she was doing her homework or getting help or things like that in relation to the cameras? Like Janet was away.
You can say that it's a her.
Do you remember there being a time where Janet was upset with Amaya about homework that she was doing that could only be observed, I guess, if you're in that room or if you're looking on?
Well, from what I said just a second ago, it was that same day. They would pick on Amaya most of the time, and Amaya had trouble doing the schoolwork. And it was on that very specific day that that's when I knew somebody's watching us because
And do you remember Janet kind of accusing her, saying, you did this, you did that, based off of things that were happening?
based off the thing that was happening that very day.
And to be clear, Janet's not physically in that room,
That's right.
but the camera
The
was.
camera was, yes. Because she obviously saw, but I had the frustration with the
Well,
light.
objection. Obviously saw.
But we can,
Wait, state, you're moving on.
we can move on.
All right.
So then you were asked these questions on cross about, well, they didn't have to ask permission to physically get out of their bed. Is that correct? You were being asked that on cross, and you weren't asked. They didn't have to ask permission to take a shower. Remember those questions?
Correct.
In your experience, have you had, in your whole lifetime interacting with kids, have you ever had experiences where kids had to ask permission to get out of bed when they woke up in the morning?
No.
Objection. It's asking for an expert opinion on.
No, it's not an expert opinion.
Well, no,
Objection
that's-
foundation.
All right, that's sustained on that.
You're on the approach.
Sure.
Yes, they did.
And they're also limited as to which bathroom they use.
Yes. And then they
Well,
would
objection misstates the testimony. She said that they had two.
Well, overall, she can answer.
Which bathroom are they allowed to use?
the one upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, you,
The one upstairs.
the
is the one
Solander
they-
children had to use the one upstairs.
And to be clear, there were some questions, well, it's a half bath downstairs, right?
There is.
Remember that? So, but that means there's a toilet.
There was
In
a
the
one
half
in there.
bath.
Yep,
Okay. But they couldn't use the toilet on the first floor.
right.
And to be clear, the bathroom on the second floor is right next to the camera.
Right. And I do remember the children, one of them, if they
Objection.
had,
Non-responsive.
It's fine, we can move on.
All right.
it was sad because of
No,
the children.
ma'am, there's no question pending. We just have to wait till the next question, okay? Then there were these series of questions about, well, you didn't call the police after day one. You didn't call the police after day two. Do you remember that?
I do,
Okay. You didn't call the police about the water. Remember these questions?
correct.
Here's my question, Chief. After day one, are you concerned?
Yes,
After day two, is your concern growing, or is it reducing, or is it staying the same?
no, it's growing.
As each day goes by, where's your concern going? Up, down, staying the same?
It's going up.
Okay. And so ultimately, you do call the police once you leave, is that right?
Yes.
And when was your concern at its highest point in the 3 weeks? Is it the beginning, the middle, or at the very end? Where is your concern the highest for the safety and well-being of these kids?
My concern with, at the highest was probably even in the second week also.
Okay. But you don't call at that time?
I don't call,
Okay. Why not? Just tell us, why didn't you call at least in the second week?
the main reason I didn't call when I was there, and it's an honest thing, the main reason I didn't call when I was there, I've seen children brainwashed, so if I knew if the police came over, they would see no signs of physical abuse and there would be nothing done. And I decided I
All
would
right,
wait.
Pam, when there's an objection, you need to stop talking so the court can rule. What's your objection?
She's offering medical opinion on brainwashing and what police would observe.
Late observation.
All right, well, she can say why she didn't report it, which was the question. She can't give opinions as to whether they were brainwashed or not. So I think the question was why she didn't report it or something.
Were you, okay, so let me ask you this. Because you couldn't see any physical marks on the children, was that a factor in whether you thought the police might believe you about some of the things?
Correct.
Okay. Did you, but deep down, did you want to call the police?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So it's not a question, did you think what was happening was of real concern to you, or did you not think it was a big deal?
No, it was a big deal and I knew I would call.
But you were worried just that without something more, you may not be believed.
Correct.
But ultimately, you do reach out and contact
Yes.
initially.
Yes.
Remember those questions about how Valentine's Day is not a major holiday? Remember
Right.
that? It's not Christmas.
Correct.
It's not Thanksgiving, things along those lines.
Yes.
Did Janet tell you that her husband went and flew all the way from wherever he was to go visit her on Valentine's Day?
Correct.
Okay. So, even though it's not a major holiday, Dwight goes to see her. Okay. And then Dwight subsequently denies even doing anything on Valentine's Day.
As he said, we don't celebrate. Yes.
But Janet actually told you the exact opposite. Then there was the questions about, well, isn't it true that Autumn vomited? Do you remember those
I do.
questions? Let's just focus on that for a second. Because initially the questions were like, well, you said nothing happened, but Autumn did vomit. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so there were 5 children in that house that you were taking care of.
Correct.
You were there for 3 weeks. Is that right?
Correct.
And 1 child vomited once at night.
Correct.
There's been no peeing accidents for any of the 5 kids, no pooping accidents for the 5 kids. Solander kids aren't vomiting anywhere. Okay, 1 time vomit at night. All right? And then there were a lot of questions about the cleaning of her hair. Do you remember a lot of these questions about?
I do.
Okay. And a discussion or an argument you may have gotten into with Janet about that. Do you remember that?
I do not.
Okay. So as you sit here today, do you recall having a discussion where Janet was upset about you supposedly letting Autumn go into school with vomit in her hair?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I'm not saying whether, and I want you to focus on my question. I'm not saying to you right now in my question that you did allow her to do it. I want you to focus about whether or not you remember there being a conversation where Janet was suggesting or accusing or commenting to you that Autumn went to school with vomit in her hair. Do you remember having a conversation?
I do not.
Okay. So as you sit here today, you don't remember that?
No.
Okay. So let me do this. You do remember giving an interview with the police, correct?
I remember giving an interview with CPS. Yes.
And you remember there being someone from CPS. And was that around March of 2014?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to approach with the voluntary statement, and I'll be referring to kind of pages 48, 49, 50, things around there. Okay. Let the record reflect on showing the witness the voluntary statement. May I approach?
You may.
So, ma'am, I want to show you this for a second. Okay. Does this, you remember kind of speaking to people, CPS and maybe law enforcement around March of 2014?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to do, if you could, just take a minute. Do you remember them indicating to you that when you were being interviewed that they were going to record it? Right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is a transcript of that interview. All right? So what I want you to do is, I want you, and every time there's a Q here, it's a question, and every time there's an A here, that means that's your answer. Starting with your answer on page 48, I want you to read this page, I want you to read page 49, and I want you to read in particular page 50. And just read it, and then when you're done reading those 3 pages, I'll ask you a question based on it. Don't say anything, but just, if you could read those 3 pages.
It's,
No, just quietly to
Just
yourself. Just
silently
read it quietly to
yourself.
yourself.
okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, you're fine. Now, after reading these 3 pages, is your memory refreshed about discussing that topic with the police? Does that refresh your memory that actually?
Yes.
Okay. So as you sit here today, do you now remember talking about that topic with the police department back in 2014 in an interview?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as you sit here today, did that help refresh your memory about the circumstances about the vomiting with IV and maybe
Yes.
any? Okay.
Now that's clear. So after reading through and having your memory refreshed, do you now remember whether or not Janet said to you, hey, you let that girl go with white vomit in her hair?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And that's because reading this helped kind of refresh your memory. Okay, and that's something that happened, you know, back in 2013, right?
Correct.
So almost around, virtually almost 5 years ago.
Correct.
Okay, so let's kind of just go through it just so it's
Sure.
kind of clear. So she said to you that you let her go to school like that, is that right?
Yes.
And that you didn't wash her, she accused you of not washing her hair. Yes or no?
No, I washed her hair.
No. Janet said to you, you did not wash her
Oh,
hair.
correct. Yes.
Did Janet say to you, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, things of that nature?
Yes.
From what you remember, do you remember in fact washing her hair?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Because I never had a little girl.
Okay. And at that point, were you on the phone with Janet? How was that conversation,
No.
if you remember?
I don't know how she found out.
Well, let me, I want you to focus on my question. When you're having this conversation with Janet, is she in person with you? Is she on the phone? Is she on Skype? What do you remember?
She would be on the phone.
Okay. And when you're having this conversation with Janet about this topic, where is Danielle? Do you remember Danielle being in the room?
Danielle stayed mostly in her room.
No. When this conversation is happening about the vomit stuff, was Danielle present at all?
No.
Do you remember saying that Danielle had relayed to Janet something about how you gave her a bath?
Yes.
Okay. How did you learn that? Was that because Janet told you?
I personally don't remember much about that phone call.
Okay. But the bottom line is, you remember doing your darndest to wash the girl's hair,
Definitely.
and you remember now being accused by Janet of maybe not doing it thoroughly.
Correct.
And there was just a disagreement as to,
Yep.
okay. So, you were asked on cross before, well, if it says in the interview that would be a lie, and I think you said yes. Do you now kind of reviewing it, do you now know that you did talk about this with the police?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. There was, the next kind of portion of cross-examination was addressing the fact that the girls didn't talk to you about catheters. You remember being asked a question
I do.
like that? Or being hit with paint sticks, things like
Yeah.
that? Okay. Tell this jury about, from the kind of moment you met them, how open are these kids in terms of talking with you about generally anything? Just from like,
Objection. What's the narrative?
it's not,
No, overruled.
how are they kind of when you first meet them? Are these kind of open, talkative kids, or are they more reserved? What are these Solander girls like?
Well, they were open and talkative, yeah, and they were very playful. I mean, they were talkative.
When it came to their parents, though,
No.
not open and talkative. You know, you said they didn't mention catheters and sticks, but they did mention boiling water.
Yes.
How far along in the time that you were there did they finally open up and tell you about that?
Probably the end of the first week.
Did they tell you about their fear of the cameras?
Yes.
Did they tell you about their fears of the homework, helping out with homework?
Yes.
Did they tell you about their concerns or fears about having food other than blended stuff?
Oh, yes.
Then, I think kind of near the end, you were asking questions about kind of the sinus infection thing. Do you remember this? And
I do.
the child being out there in the pool. Was your concern that she wasn't taking medicine, or was it something different?
Well, it was just cold, and she was very pale, so I was concerned about her. I gave her a
What
hug.
time of this year
It was
was it?
approximately about 7:30 at night.
Okay,
So
what
I just
month?
gave her a hug and said, let's go inside.
What month was it?
It was January, approximately the end of January.
Okay.
court's indulgence. I have no further questions at this time.
Any requests?
Ms. Finney, you were asked generally about the instructions that you received from Dwight versus Janet. So I'm going to redirect your attention to that. You met Janet in person one time.
Correct.
And that was at the initial interview, right?
Right.
At a home.
Yes.
And then you had one phone call with her afterwards.
Yes.
And in that phone call, there was a discussion about the Valentine's Day dinner
Correct.
and also Autumn's vomiting incident with the hair, right?
Correct.
Okay. You did not receive instructions from her in that phone call about any food or toilet paper or schoolwork, right?
I did not.
We were also asked questions about your observations as far as Dwight interacting with any of the children in the home.
Yes.
So I want to direct your attention to that. You were the live-in nanny while Dwight worked, right?
Correct.
Okay. So Dwight was not home most of the time.
Correct.
In fact, he would leave very early Monday mornings, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you would come generally Monday mornings to work, or sometimes very late Sunday, right?
Correct.
Okay. So by the time that you would have arrived late Sunday, you weren't required to do any work those days, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you would wake up in the morning to resume work, right?
Yes.
And you would generally get up to get the children up, at least starting around 7 or 7:30 was your testimony, right? And Dwight was only there until, correct me if I'm wrong, it was my memory you testified that Dwight was only there very early in the mornings, maybe until like 8 or 8:30.
About that, sometimes a little later, but he was also there Sunday night when we got there.
Okay, my question to you was about when Dwight left in the mornings on Mondays, and it would be earlier,
Yes,
so
it's
more
early.
than an hour or so.
Correct.
Okay. And then he would come home late Fridays,
Yes. Yes.
and then when he was home, you would be discharged and able to go back to your home Friday evening.
Yes.
Okay, so there's just not a lot of overlap, right?
There wasn't a lot. I had some opportunities to talk with him, but there wasn't a
My
lot.
question to you was, there's just not a lot of overlap, right?
Correct.
And it would have been very early morning hours or late evening hours, right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, with some early morning hours coincided with the time where it was time for breakfast preparation, right?
Right.
And then the early evening hours, that could also coincide with dinner preparation or bath time or the playtime for the kids, right?
Correct.
Okay. You had no specific instructions from Dwight to not let the children watch TV, right?
The children told me, not from Dwight.
Not from
I
Dwight.
weren't allowed to watch TV.
Okay, so Dwight did not specifically instruct you, don't let the kids watch TV.
No.
Janet did not specifically instruct you, don't let the kids watch TV.
No.
They were followed up on some of my questions about the older kids in the home doing chores and that foster kids didn't do any chores. I'm going to direct your attention to that. Foster kids are 4 and 6, right?
It's time, yes, I think so.
And they were foster children.
Right.
They were not the Solander's actual children.
Correct.
Okay. But Solander's actual children helped out and would make one of them would make the bed for the little kids, the little foster kids. Okay. Ms. Finnegan, I want to direct your attention to the questions about how you knew that Janet was watching on the cameras. Okay? So, again, you only had one contact by phone with Janet when she was away for the 3 weeks. Right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And that the timing of that confrontation where Amaya was upset and Danielle was alleged to have struck her in the face, that occurred while Danielle was home in the house, right?
Correct.
And Danielle is the biological child of Mrs. Solander, right?
Yes.
And she had regular contact with her mother, right?
Yes.
And Danielle was home all day, right?
She was.
She was in her room, but she was home all day, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you don't have any personal knowledge about whether or not Danielle was watching on the video cameras, or if well, I don't want to make that comment. You don't have any personal knowledge about whether or not Danielle was watching any of the video cameras. Okay. You also don't have any knowledge about whether or not Danielle may have watched the video and then called her mother to say, I saw this happen.
Correct.
Your testimony was that Danielle either called or Skyped her mother, and that was how the communication between Danielle and Janet happened as to whatever was seen with Maya.
Correct.
Okay. Now you testified about water concerns. There was running water in the bathroom, right?
Of course.
They were able to take showers.
Yes.
They were able to brush their teeth.
Yes.
Okay. They were able to get a cup of water and spit if they needed to rinse after brushing their teeth.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, so it's fair to say water was not restricted then.
They were restricted from drinking.
They were able to have water in the bathroom though.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Finnegan, you talked about how you did not come forward sooner with either police or CPS because they wouldn't believe you. My question to you is, do you have a criminal history?
Do I what?
Do you have a criminal history?
I sure don't.
Okay. Then what is it about you that is not believable?
I didn't want to call until I left the house.
Okay. You didn't want to call until you left the house.
Right.
For the first week, you were there Monday through Friday and then left the house, right?
Right.
And then the second week, you came back.
I did.
And you were, sorry, you're right. You did. And the second week, you were there Monday through Friday,
Right.
and you left again on Friday.
I did.
And that weekend, you didn't call anybody.
Right.
Then you were there the whole entire third week. And then spent the entire weekend away from that home again.
I couldn't take it anymore.
My question to you was, you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
So you had the whole weekend, and you didn't make a call until the following weekday.
Day. Correct.
Anything else, Mr. Hammer?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any juror questions for Ms. Wicks? Great. Now I don't see any other questions. Thank you for your testimony. Please do not discuss your testimony. And the state business.
He's going to call Autumn Stark to stand.